anti-doping or like doping tests are not cheap, right? Can you maybe give us an idea on, like I've heard for this like Sebastian Survey use case, like a test can be up to $2,000 kind of as a rough cost. So what are we looking at here without, of course, revealing commercial agreements with Golden Trail? Like if we had to now test out of competition testing for 50-ish male and 50-ish trail athletes, like what are we looking at here? Are we looking in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or in the millions?
For 100 athletes, a proper out of competition testing program that we run according to our standards would cost basically $1 million per year for 100 athletes. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of close to 10,000 per year per athlete.
And that would be roughly a handful of tests per athlete over the year on average, of course.
Yeah, a handful or a bit more, but yeah, on average, yeah.
Okay, and that would cover globally, right? So whether the athlete is Asia, okay.
Yeah, so it is, anti-doping is expensive, and so there's a cost benefit. I mean, I think the great thing, and I mean, it's no secret, I can tell your listeners that we've been talking to Golden Trail and UTMB about this. They're two organisations, as far as I can tell, that are very responsible and very serious about addressing anti-doping in the future. So we've been discussing the possibilities of having an out-of-competition testing program with them. Those discussions are ongoing. And yeah, they have to decide the cost benefit, what exactly they want to do, and hopefully it'll be great if those organisations decide to create an out of competition testing program for their events in the future.
Right. I don't know. I mean, of course, we said anti-doping efforts are not cheap. And I actually think, now that I think about it a bit more, if we had to consider trail as an entirety, so from the short distance to the 100 miles, so Golden Trail to like 100 mile, I think we would have possibly 50 male and 50 female athletes, if not more. So that number is actually realistic, or at least maybe it's the lower level.
Yeah,
Do
for
you?
both. You mean for both combined, for Golden Trail and
Yes.
to the UTMB? Yeah, no, that sounds that sounds reasonable to me. Yeah.
Do you think the onus or the responsibility for funding should be entirely on event organizations, or would you expect that other entities kind of chip in, right? Like sponsors, athletes themselves, like how because of course trail isn't yet a rich sport, right? But you have entities like your big sponsors, your Nike is doing a big, with their ACGs, doing a big play into trail. If they won, they could drop a few $100,000 on funding testing, while maybe Golden Trail at the moment can't. Or maybe broadcast entities, we're starting to see more and more Golden Trail being broadcasted around the world and streaming. Would you expect maybe additional entities to chip in, or is it always something where they feel that there is not much of a reward?
Well, look, that sort of a conversation is really amongst the sport and the stakeholders themselves. But what I can talk to is what's happened in the marathon. And in the marathon, it is a collective effort. The the races themselves as commercial entities contribute, the athletes contribute, the athlete managers contribute, and the shoe brands, many of them contribute, and it works very well. And you can see from the world record of Sebastian Sawe on the weekend in London, Adidas paid $50,000 per year in addition to his normal testing to supplement testing program for that athlete, and to ensure that he's tested to a very, very high degree of assurance. And I think that's a commercial decision for them, but I think uh, the benefit of that was clear after his world record. I think, the way his world record effort has been perceived and celebrated is very, very different to what it otherwise would have been. Certainly very, very different to what the commentary was after Ruth Chepngetich world record in Chicago. And so, yeah, it's a cost benefit analysis. We're not kind of coming at this when we speak into Golden Trail, when we speak to UTMB, we're not coming to this from some moralistic standpoint. It's about the business. It's about what the fans want. It's about what serves best the athletes. These are the questions, and as a cost benefit. What we can come to the table with is explaining how we work, what's required to really have a proper anti-doping program, because it's quite easy to kind of just do a fake one. That's you just send out tests there kind of randomly, and you're not really achieving much. It's just it's pretty easy to do something that's kind of designed to be a fig leaf, and we just don't operate in that way, and we never will. So the type of program we run, it does come with a cost, and we explain that, and then the decision's over to the industry really as to what they want to do next.
If I understood you correctly, it sounds quite simple. Like it's very figured out, right? Like you give us the money, we do the tests, and like all other problems have been kind of solved through other sports or other use cases you have. What are the barriers then that you see going forward for us to introduce such a system? Why? Maybe I can change the question. Why do you think it has taken so long? Is it just the commercial piece?
Yeah, I think it's just the money. There are no real barriers in this situation. There might to make the the system work well. Some people need to come together to agree things like and so, for example, should there be one pool that covers the trail up to the ultra, or do we have two separate funded pools? Who's going to make the contribution? Is it race by race? Is it the central series owner? Do sponsors contribute? Do athletes contribute, etc.? So all those funding solutions are the things that really need to be worked out. But it's been worked out in other contexts. So for us in the marathon, as I said before, each race, according to their status, contributes a fee, and all this money goes into the pot. The athletes contribute part of their prize money. The agents contribute. Sponsors contribute. This funds all of the testing that needs to occur, and essentially we create a testing pool, the size of which is determined by how much money is in the pot. So, it's worked very effectively and very well. In the marathon event, let me give you an example of this. In 2016, before the AIU was created, the IAAF, as it was at the time, had one single case from a Kenyan athlete in 2016. Now we have 30, 40 cases per year against Kenyan athletes, because thanks to this new system and this funding, we've been able to build really great systems for testing in Kenya and Ethiopia as well. There's a blood laboratory that's in Kenya that was never there before, that's crucial to all of this. The testing in Kenya is, quite frankly, the best testing anywhere in the world, no question. The testing systems and infrastructure now. And all this has created is a huge benefit to the marathon industry, because while there are still lots of cases, as there should be, with much more testing, the situation is far more controlled than it ever was in the past. It was really the Wild West. and that's the benefit of the industry and the different parts of the industry coming together to create the funding solution. So the funding solution is really the only barrier to this changing or working. And like I said, that's an industry question about the cost benefit of how much can be afforded. What I can say is that when things get sort of serious, there's real incentive to win races. If there's good prize money, good contracts from sponsors, then no matter where you are in the world, a certain percentage of people will be tempted to dope. And if they're not tested out of competition, the thing about out of competition testing, if you're not giving your whereabouts um, and in a registered testing pool, it's not that you're not tested out of competition. It's that you're not going to be tested out of competition because there's no way anyone can find you to do the test. So that's a situation that is very, very high risk, dependent on the incentives and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, that's the bottom line.